folks, welcome to IAS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing a current affair topic presented to you by your faculty, Sushma KP. So what is the topic that we will be discussing today? Generational categories, that is understanding the terms of who are these Gen Zs, Millennials, understanding your baby boomers, right? See, first and foremost, when we keep calling these terms, Gen Zs, Millennials, etc., this is used to describe a generation of people. That is, there is a difference from people from one period of time to the other period. So this is what we are calling the differentiation of different names. Now if you are someone who likes national issues, international issues, current affairs and trying to keep updated with what's going on in the world with a detailed analysis, then one of the right places for you is IAS Academy. So what are you supposed to do? Hit the subscribe bell and make sure that you will be receiving the content as soon as we post it. Alright, now let's get back into the topic. First and foremost, see, we will be discussing about these different generations based on the present context of your Nepal's crisis that is happening with respect to the youth protest. Here we will be discussing topics like the different generations that we have seen. First thing we will be seeing with respect to your baby boomers, Generation X, Millennials, Generation Z, Generation Alpha, understanding, and we will also be comparing it to the present day issue of what Nepal is facing it with respect to your youth-led uprising, understanding. So we will start from the beginning. Who are these silent generations? The silent generation is someone who is born between the period of time of 1928 to 1945. See, largely this generation ka defining factors, if you see, it is more of they are in the period of economic uncertainty. Economic uncertainty means again they have faced Second World War, Korean War, Red Scares, and also they were characterized. See, usually whatever the society they see, their surroundings they see, whatever things they have been put through, somewhat tends to define their characteristics of a society at large. If you see here, theirs is more of, let's say the silent generation ka, the attribute is more towards your silent conformity, understanding, just agreeance. And majority of the leaders during this period of time, if you see, they were fighting for your civil rights movement, understanding, because they said no, these things are wrong, why should we do this? So this led to a large period of civil rights movement fights during this period of time. The second generation or the second significant shift that we see in the generation is your baby boomers, understanding. Here boomers means boom, something that is a dramatic rise. Let's say post your, see 1946 post, that is post your Second World War period what we are discussing, dramatic rise in the birth rate, understanding. So that is why we are telling that is a boom. And second thing is, at this period of time, considerable amount of social and political changes also started happening, and civil rights movement alongside your strong work ethic, optimism and Cold War ideologies, keeping all this in mind. So this generation was your baby boomers. Next is your Generation X, people who are born between your 1965 to 1980 period. Usually they are dubbed as the latchkey kids because they grew up with less adult supervision. Why? Because again due to high divorce, rising at that point of time, rising divorce rates, so they didn't have a lot of adult supervision, so somewhere less adult supervision was there, and more single parents having to enter into the workforce. Okay, so they were described more as independent, resourceful, somewhat skeptical of authority, right? So these things we can call them. So this is more of your transition phase that we see, understanding. Next is your Gen Y or Millennials. This is largely your 1981 to 1996 period. This generation is the first one which grew up with internet, understanding, and widespread technologies, and which had a heavy influence on their lifestyles. And another important thing is many millennials have entered the workforce during the recession, were all faced with significant amount of student deaths. right? So that burden also they had to carry on them. The next is your Generation Z. Generation Z is the ones that were born between your 1997 to the 2012. Now these are called as digital natives, which means they have never known a world without internet, right? So smartphones is not a need, matter, necessity, it is just that's how way of life is sort of scenario. Okay, they are highly connected, pragmatic and heightened awareness about global events, social issues, because the world is more connected. Yes, globalization. Then is the Generation Alpha. The Gen Alpha is someone who is born from 2013 to 2025 and it is the birth is still ongoing here. Clear? So here this is the youngest generation and your Gen Alpha is still being born. They are the children of the Millennials and they are growing in a world with ubiquitous screens, advanced technology or artificial intelligence. So it is like a thing that they are seeing in a more and more connected world. Understanding? Now, we will be discussing about your Nepal crisis as to what exactly happened. Okay, and why are a so-called section called Gen Z have been so much triggered that they have led to full-fledged protests in Nepal. So what happened initially? Let's take this. I will tell it to you like a story. So what happened of thousands of students, Nepal's youth, they hit the streets, as in they were protesting against a government order. What was that order? That government had put a sweeping ban on major social media platforms. Platforms were almost 26, including your Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, X, YouTube, everything. What did the government tell? Why are they banning this? Is because they failed to comply with the government's order. What was the government's order? First and foremost, they gave a deadline to comply. What is that? Register locally, appoint grievance redressal handlers and remove flagged content. When they didn't do, they put a complete blanket claim ban. Now this was told by your Ministry of Communication and Information Technology. Now what happened? The protesters, the youth, okay, that is below 30 years of age, calling themselves as Gen Z protests, okay, large number of people, college students, school children, all of them came forward and they were vocal in showing out their discontent. At this point of time, many people tried to enter the parliament building, on whom tear gas, water guns, all of them were unleashed. In the process, 19 people were dead and more than 400 people were injured. Initially, what started out as peaceful protest now turned violent. Once it turned violent, it became a very difficult thing to stop. Because one thing about your mass movements, especially in South Asia, see, South Asia is not very new to the concepts of mass movements. In fact, if you take Nepal's history also, they fought and they were inspired by India to fight against the British colonialism, right? So, mass movement has been a part of your South Asian culture. We saw that in your Sri Lankan case, recently we saw that in your Bangladesh case, and now it has come back to your Nepal. And even the concept of mass protest in Nepal is not new. So much so that the Gen Z, that's what they are calling themselves, they also took up, see, their focus was not only about your social media ban or wanting to mobilize the social media, but was also about, the focus was on anti-corruption and anti-nepotism stance, or what they dubbed it as Nepo babies, privileged understanding. This led to huge amount of protest. They said that completely we will break down this pattern. We will break down this pattern so much so that we will set up a new order. A new election will be set up. We will go move more towards the republic. So, the social media ban triggered a huge number of other things also, that is with respect to your nepotism, corruption. The police brutality on the students sparked the outrage, and what was peaceful turned extremely violent. And for this, how it became violent, they started doing the symbolic destruction, which means they started attacking the institutions. Parliament building, now you can see in the image here itself, Parliament building was doused. Your Prime Minister office was again torched. They started attacking the institutions of authority. Ministers' houses were targeted. Complete delegitimization, so much so led to a Hobbesian state breakdown. What Hobbesian state breakdown is, we did another video on it, do check that out. Another thing with respect to your digital media, if you see, there is two views. Your ruling elite view social media as a threat, and they feel that the information what is put out there must be controlled. The next perspective, that is your Gen Z or whatever your youth, we are calling it different generational names, they are claiming that no, social media is democracy. Digital rights are essential. You cannot put a complete blanket ban on these things. So yes, revolutions are happening. Once we saw the boomers revolution, which were against monarchy, which established your republic. Now we see Gen Z revolution, which is against the fact of claiming that yes, you will dictate everything, or you will be the one who will controlling information is wrong. So this has led to a huge number of institutional failures. See, just bringing a revolution without any institutional framework or support will lead to failure of the system. Okay, this will lead to a fragility in the institution, lack of trust from the people's role, and to control the situation, the outcome is again the Prime Minister resigned, yes, that is there, and your Gen Z is struggling to name a new interim leader, military role is expanded, political delegitimization has happened, youth has undergone huge amount of radicalization with respect to direct action is preferred, they are seeing democracy as slow. All these without providing any alternatives is a risky option, because so what could be a possible mains question from this topic? Digital generations redefine democracy, opportunities and risk. Yes, there are good amount of opportunities also, but the risk is when you do something without building any alternate or institutional reform, it is bound to fail and go back again to a different cycle. So it is like a loop of cycles. With this, we've come to the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.